After discussing the Archimedean property and density theorems for rational as well as irrational numbers, now we are going to see some applications of these results. Recall the density theorem for irrational numbers. We stated that between any two real numbers, there is an irrational number. To establish this statement, we use the density theorem for rationals, which states that between any two real numbers, there is a rational number. How do we proceed to prove that between any two real numbers there is an irrational number? For that, we took the help of density theorem for rationals in the following way. We use the fact that square root of 2 is an irrational number, and after that we used another fact that if you have an irrational number and if you have a rational number, then the product of these two, provided that the rational number we have taken is non-zero, the product of rational and irrational is going to be again an irrational number. Using this fact, we proved that between any two real numbers we can find an irrational number. Now we are going to see a slightly different way in which it is not necessary to assume that the rational number guaranteed by density theorem for rationals, we don't have to assume that that rational number is not zero. We are going to make the statement once again that the density theorem for irrationals, and we will prove without the assumption that the rational number given by density theorem is not zero. To prove what we promised, we are going to see this cube problem that the sum of two rational numbers is again a rational number. Using this problem, we will prove that between any two real numbers there is an irrational number. Solving this problem is very easy, and we take two rational numbers, which is m by n and p by q. So if the rational numbers we chose are m by n and p by q, with the obvious assumption that n and q are non-zero, then by the rule of addition of rational numbers, this becomes mq plus np by nq. And mq plus np, these are all integers, therefore mq plus np is also an integer. N and q non-zero, therefore nq is also a non-zero integer, therefore this becomes a rational number. So the sum of two rational numbers is again rational. Similarly, we can show that the difference, product, and ratio. Of course, denominator not equal to zero of rational numbers is again a rational. This is also very easy to establish. We have to just use the technique that we employed in the previous question, that take rational numbers in the form m by n, p by q, and just take the difference, product, and ratio. Everything will turn out to be rational again, provided we use the usual rules of addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, etc. in the set of all rational numbers. Now we are going to see the different version of proof for the result that between any two real numbers there is an irrational number. So this is the question we have. We have to show that between any two real numbers a and b with a less than b, there exists, we can find an irrational number t such that t lies between a and b. We are going to seek the support of the irrational number root 2, because we know that root 2 is an irrational, and that is the only irrational number that much familiar to us. Root 2 irrational. This is a fact known to us. Now, what is the density theorem for rationals? What does that say? Density of Q in R states that given any xy in R, where x is less than y, we can find a rational number Q such that R lies between x and y. We are going to use this fact to establish what we claimed in our question. Suppose that for some x and y, not x and y, we have chosen the symbols a and b. Suppose that we have taken the symbols a and b. We know that a minus root 2, b minus root 2 are also real numbers, and since a is less than b, it's given a minus root 2 must be less than b minus root 2. So a less than b implies that a minus root 2 less than b minus root 2. And we know that by the density theorem for rationals, there is a rational between a minus root 2 and b minus root 2. There exists R in Q such that a minus root 2 less than R less than b minus root 2. Next step is quite simple and obvious. We just add root 2 to this inequality, to all the terms in this inequality. Therefore, a less than r plus root 2 less than b. Now the only question remaining is, we found r plus root 2 between a and b. Is r plus root 2 an irrational number? That is the only question remaining. We know that r is a rational number and root 2 is an irrational number. And the claim we are going to make is much more general, and this will solve the problem completely. The claim is this: if r rational and z irrational, then r plus z irrational. This is what our claim is. So, as in most of the cases, when the direct proof is not very easy or not very obvious, we will take the indirect route. We will assume that this is not the case. That means r plus z is not an irrational. That means suppose that r plus z is a rational. On the other hand, instead of what we claimed, suppose r plus z is in Q. So if r plus z is in Q, r plus z equal to some r prime in Q. Therefore, what about z? Z must be r prime minus r, and this belongs to Q by our previous problem. Therefore, z we claim to be in the set of all irrationals. Now we are getting that to be in the set of all rationals. This is not possible. This is a contradiction. This is a contradiction, and therefore what we assumed, what we claimed is not correct. What we claimed starting from, on the other hand, that it's not correct. That means r plus z is not in Q, or r plus z is in set of all irrationals. Therefore, this is verified. So r is a rational number. We are coming back to our original problem. R is a rational number. Root 2 is an irrational number. Therefore, r plus root 2 is an irrational number. So we found this belongs to I. So we found an irrational number between A and B. Here, the difference between this proof and the previous proof is that in the previous proof, we assumed that the rational number that we are choosing is non-zero, and we had to go that extra mile, but here it is not necessary. Now we are going to see an application of the Archimedean property. So what does Archimedean property say? Archimedean property had two parts. First part said that whatever real number we choose, we can find a natural number greater than that real number. And second part is in some way inverse of the first part, which says that whatever positive real number we choose, we can find a natural number n such that 1 by n is less than that positive real number. We are going to make use of Archimedean property to establish one of the things that we had guessed previously, which is that the set of all elements of the form 1 by n, that is 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, etc., that set has infimum equal to 0. That is what we are going to prove using the Archimedean property. Question is the following. We have to show that infimum of the set 1 by n, where n are in positive integers, that's equal to 0. And we are going to use Archimedean property to prove this. Recall the axiom of completeness. Axiom of completeness guarantees that given a subset of real numbers which is non-empty and bounded above, we can find a supremum of that set in the set of all real numbers. And using the axiom of completeness, we derived an alternate version using the infimum of a set. And in that case, in that particular statement, we said and we proved that given a non-empty bounded below subset of real numbers, we can find infimum of that set in the set of all real numbers. So what about this particular set, the set of all 1 by n, where n are all natural numbers? Clearly, this is bounded below because we know that 1 by n's are all positive because 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, all these numbers are positive, and therefore 0 is going to be a lower bound for this set. 0 is a lower bound for this set. So what we are claiming here is that 0 is not just a lower bound, it is the greatest lower bound or GLB or infimum. So we have to show that 0 is the GLB. Or infimum of. So since 0 is a lower bound, nothing less than 0 can be the GLB because we want GLB to be the greatest lower bound. Therefore, the only possibility is that GLB can be greater than or equal to 0. Suppose L equal to infimum of 1 by n, n equals to n. If L is greater than 0, therefore L must be greater than or equal to 0 because 0 is a lower bound. Greatest lower bound must be greater than or equal to any other lower bound. Therefore, L is greater than or equal to 0. If L is greater than 0, what will happen? If L is greater than 0, by the second part of Archimedean property, we know that there exists a natural number n such that 1 by n is less than L. Then by Archimedean property, there exists natural number n such that 1 by n is less than L. But L is the lower bound, L is the lower bound of the set of what 1 by n's. Therefore, L must be, it's a lower bound means that it must be less than or equal to every element in that set. L is less than or equal to 1 by n for all n in. So we have two contradicting statements. L is less than or equal to 1 by n and L is greater than 1 by n. Therefore, this results into a contradiction because L cannot be less than or equal to 1 by n and greater than 1 by n simultaneously. Therefore, what is the conclusion therefore? So what we have assumed previously must be wrong. That is, L greater than 0 must be wrong. L cannot be greater than 0. But L is greater than or equal to 0 for sure. Therefore, L must be equal to 0. Therefore, the infimum of this set is equal to 0. We are now going back to the nested interval property of closed intervals in R. What does the nested interval property say? It said that given a nested sequence of closed and bounded intervals, that means that we have a sequence of intervals of the form I1 equal to A1 B1 closed interval, I2 equal to A2 B2 etc. in such that I1 contains I2 contains I3 etc. So nested interval property said that the intersection of all these closed intervals is going to be non-empty. Now, what is there anything special about closed intervals? Can we take open intervals also there and we get, are we going to get the same result? That means if you replace the condition that closed intervals and if we retain the condition that nested intervals, then can we still say that the intersection is going to be non-empty? That is a question that we are going to see, and the answer, okay, after seeing the question we will see whether it's going to be correct or not.